So let's dive in. A brand audit is made up of 4 main steps. First, you will gather plastic waste during a cleanup, either outdoors or in your home. If you're doing an outdoor cleanup, typically these sorts of cleanups tend to collect all waste materials, everything you're finding in the outdoor environment where you're hosting your event. So if you're doing it that way, we really recommend designating a plastics person or a plastics team, depending how many volunteers you have, to pick up only plastic so that it's separated from the beginning. And this is really to avoid the trouble of having to sort through all of the garbage, which can get quite messy. If you're doing a brand audit in your home, we have guidelines in the brand audit toolkit on how to do that. But in a nutshell, you'll want to designate a plastics only container somewhere in your home, typically in the kitchen. And over the course of 1 week, ask members of your household to dispose of all plastic packaging that would otherwise go into your garbage or recycling, just for this 1 week, into the plastics collection container. So then once you've gathered all of your plastic, whether it's an outdoor or an indoor collection, you'll need to sort it into categories. So more on that later. We'll practice doing that together. Then, once your plastics are sorted into categories, you'll want to record the data by hand. And we really recommend you print out the data card and physically record it by hand, simply because sorting through waste can be quite messy, and we just don't want you to ruin your computer or phone. So recommend doing it that way, just for the sake of facilitating the task. Finally, step 4, after you have disposed of your waste at your local recycling or landfill facilities, depending what's available in your area, you will submit your data digitally to be included in the Break Free from Plastic Global Brand Audit database. So typically steps 1 through 3 will often happen together, particularly if you're doing a 1-day cleanup and brand audit event. Whereas step 4 often happens perhaps the next day or in the next couple of days after you've disposed of the waste, had a rest, cleaned up. So just know that the final step is really critical, and that step can often take place at home, at your computer, after all of the excitement of the event has finished. Everything you need to conduct your brand audit can be found in the Brand Audit Toolkit page. So the link is breakfreefromplastic.org/brand audit toolkit. And so everything we'll be going over together today, you can find in the toolkit page. Under data card and visual guide, this is where you can find the essential forms you'll need to print out for your brand audit. So this will contain the data card and the accompanying visual guide, as well as the toolkit text in a more printable, easy to print format. And these resources are available in about a dozen different languages. So hopefully, if English is not your preferred language, you can also find a language that suits you in this section. And of course, if you'd like to reach out to translate into your own language, always happy to support that. So don't hesitate to reach out if you'd like to translate into other languages. And I do just want to show briefly, here we are on the toolkit page. So on the note of making resources available in other languages, you can also go up here where you see this translate button, and you'll see if you click there, you'll have a menu of about a dozen languages. And this is, thanks to Google Translate, you can select a flag, and that will translate the entire page into that language. So it may not be a perfect translation, but it's good enough and hopefully can be helpful to you. So you can scroll down and see these are the 10 steps of the brand audit toolkit methodology. So just some cool tools to make sure that you have what you need in your language. So here is a recommended timeline as you get started in planning your event. So first part, of course, is all of the preparations, the recruitment, the promotion, getting people to join you. So the first thing we recommend you start with is getting any necessary permissions and perhaps additional funding you might need to host your event. So make sure you have the necessary authorizations in your city or in your community. And part of that will also involve preparing a waste disposal plan. So depending on how big your event, you may need to reach out to your local waste facilities, your local municipality, to perhaps get a truck to help you pick up all of the waste that you're collecting. So this really depends on where you are and how big your event is going to be. So there's no standard guideline I can offer here, except find out what kind of authorizations and services you can access in your city regarding permissions to host a public event in a public space, and making sure that you know how you plan to dispose of all of the waste you gather at the end of your event. So, of course, recommend whatever can be recycled, and everything else be disposed of in the appropriate way. You are most welcome to use our Break Free from Plastic social media toolkit that you can find on the Brand Audit toolkit page. This has some photos, some graphics, some pre-written texts that you can use to promote your event and recruit volunteers. So check it out. At the time of this recording, it's still the 2020 language that's up, but we'll have the new one up soon. And all you need to do is just make sure that the hashtag is Brand Audit 2021. So a lot of the text, even from last year, can still be used this year as well. And of course, please make sure you register your event once all of these logistics are confirmed. Next, when you are hosting your event, we are still, unfortunately, in a global pandemic. So please make sure that you prioritize the health and safety of your participants and of your community. We have some guidelines on coronavirus safety that you can find on our website. So we really ask that you review these and make sure that you prioritize the coronavirus safety guidelines as you are hosting your event. So depending on the situation in your area, we just ask that you really make this a priority and take the necessary precautions to make sure that your event does not enable the further spread of the coronavirus in your community. We also recommend that you take lots of photos and videos during your event, whether it's a small event, a big event, you're doing it at home, you're doing it with a big group of people. Please let us see your event in action. It would be really, really important to us to be able to reshare those on our social media accounts to thank you and celebrate you and amplify your work. So please make sure you document your event with photos and videos, post them on social media. You can tag us at Break Free from Plastic and also use the hashtags Break Free from Plastic and Brand Audit 2021. And if you're not on social media, you can also simply email those photos and videos to us at the email address here, brandaudit@breakfreefromplastic.org. Finally, the last step of the brand audit, you'll see in step 10, is what we call the return to sender. So this involves sending back to the companies their branded plastic waste. So let's say you find a number of plastic waste materials that still are branded. Some of them are recyclable and some of them are not. So if you can recycle what you find, do it. And for all of the rest, why not just send it back to the companies that made it? We have a letter template you can use to send a strong message to the companies that this is something that they created and this is something that they're going to have to deal with. So check out the templates available in step 10 of the toolkit guide. Of course, this is a step that not everyone wants to do. But if it's accessible to you, we really recommend you do it because it sends a very strong, powerful message to the companies that consumers are tired of their reliance on single-use plastic packaging. So consider doing that if you can, and find more in the toolkit about how to do that. Finally, you'll want to submit your data. So as part of that, of course, we want to make sure that we're thanking your team because the process of recording and submitting the data can be time consuming and it's hard work. So if you would like to receive a certificate of appreciation, please send your request to brandaudit@breakfreefromplastic.org. And I'd be more than happy to make a certificate for you. I only do this on request, so just let me know the name of your group or the name of the person you would like to thank. And finally, please make sure you submit your data no later than September 20th, 2021. This is our absolute latest deadline that we can accept the data. And this is because we have a short time frame to process and analyze all the data and prepare for our global report, which will come out later in the fall. So please make sure you submit your data as soon as possible, but no later than September 20th. And finally, we really would love to hear your stories. So if you're inspired to write a blog, do a social media takeover, or share your story in any other creative way, please get in touch. Be more than happy to share your story on our website and amplify it on social media. So get inspired and reach out if that's something that you would like to do. So really recommend you consider sharing your story with us. Finally, once our report will launch later in the fall, we will send it to you and we ask you to share it in your networks, to post it on social media and tag those top polluting companies so they get bombarded with our demands. And if you're inspired to take your brand audit a step further and develop your own campaign, I'll be presenting a little bit later. We have a brand new resource called our guide to impactful brand audit campaigning. And this is something that we developed because so many members asked for it. They wanted to know, in addition to the global report, how can I use my data to make a longer term impact in my community? So we have a brand new resource that can help you do just that. And we'll get to that later in the presentation. But so step one, doing your brand audit, submitting your data. And then if you see, oh, this data could actually help me pass some policy in my town or help me pressure a company that's here in my state or in my region. There's lots of ways that you can use your data to advocate for some of those systemic changes at the local or national level. So we'll get to that a little bit later. Alrighty, so we have a guide, as I mentioned, on our website on coronavirus safety. So I won't dwell on this slide for too long, aside to thank our member Trash Hero World who put together this great graphic. And of course, as I said before, please make sure that you just prioritize the health and safety of your community. So do your research, find out, what are the local restrictions in your area? How can you make sure that your event stays safe? And whenever possible, prioritize health and safety more than numbers and all of that. So if you need to make your event a lot smaller, or if you need to space it out in a way that makes it authorized, or worst case scenario, if the situation in your area is really unsafe for in-person events, we ask that you consider doing a home brand audit. That's still very valuable and can still be a great learning opportunity for your participants. And you can find instructions for home brand audits in step 3 of the toolkit. So please make sure you stay informed, stay up to date on the rate of cases in your area, and make sure you keep safety first.